This episode is with Ryan Ingalls, a mental conditioning coach at IMG Academy and an NFT and cryptocurrency enthusiast. Thank you for being here and I hope you enjoy this episode.
Good to see you.
Likewise.
How's Miami?
Miami's good. I mean, it's right now during summer, it's pretty calm in terms of like my schedule, what I've been doing. I haven't been as busy just because I don't have school. But it picks up like once school starts, I'm usually go all the time. And so, I'm kind of enjoying the little bit of time right now I have because also when I'm done, like I'll be graduating this December. So it's practically my last summer since I'll be working.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a trap. So I don't know if anybody's told you that part yet, but enjoy this part while you can.
Yeah.
The work,
Yeah,
growing
definitely.
up stuff, total trap. I love my job and it's still a trap.
Yeah, it's there's so many aspects that go into the growing up part that you don't realize early on. Well, I was trying to kind of figure out what my paying situation is going to look like, or like my bills, once I start working this January, because that's when I'll be looking for a job. But I was, kind of starting to figure out, okay, how much is it going to be for rent? How much is it going to be for food? How much is it going to be for internet, electricity, water, all this stuff that when you're in high school before that, or even in college, like I didn't really think of these things.
Right.
And you start to make these calculations and I'm like, oh man, I have to find a good job.
Right. Yeah. No, it's yeah. There's you instantly are always running that math equation of like, what's this? Like it totally makes sense that every time there was a light left on in a part of the house that we were not in, parents were like flipping it off. Like, what are you doing? Like, why is it a big deal? Like, because it's money. It's all money. So,
Yeah, like you said, I never really kind of realized that. Also when you come back home from school and you have your food already made and everything, and it's just so nice. And then you go out there. I mean, I guess that sense of responsibility falls once you go to college, but more so even like more when you kind of figure that, okay, at least in college, a lot of the time you don't, you're not, the money that you're using to buy food and so on is not coming from your end.
right.
And so, you still got to make your own food and figure out where you're going to get your food and all that stuff, but you don't have to worry about how, like, where you're gonna get that money for the food itself.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yep. You'll get there. But like, man, you'll start making the rounds and you'll find the deals real quick where it's like 2-for-1 wing night and $5 burgers and all that. Yep. Yeah.
It's kind of crazy how much things revolve around money, just because a lot of times, I feel like people end up doing things you don't really want to do just because it gives you that financial security. And I'm at that point where I don't really know what I want to do long term. I haven't really figured it out. I wasn't a big fan of my major, which is business technology, kind of computer science. So I'm still kind of in that boat trying to figure out what I want to do, but I'm always in this balance between, okay, like am I gonna look for a job that can pay me well and I can live a life where I'm not really worrying that much about how much money I'm making, or am I maybe going to look for something else and have the risk of not necessarily getting paid as much?
Yeah. And maybe it plays into the conversation that you want to have. But like over the last going on like 2 years now, certain things with the way like COVID had changed work dynamics, and then obviously like the cryptocurrency NFT stuff kind of changed perspectives on things. yeah, there's everything at a certain point comes down to money, and it's a very, very interesting conversation and way to look at things. So um, yeah.
And it's also what's also important, I guess, is it's if you're doing something that you do enjoy, you're just willing to put in that much more effort
Mhm.
and time into things. And that in turn results in you being able, for the most part, to make more money because you'll be probably be better at it than if you were doing something you didn't really like. And so um most of the time I think finding that thing, it's although maybe at the beginning it won't maybe give you as much as some other field would, but maybe in the long term it's a good idea. But like I said, I just don't know what that thing is for me yet.
And I mean, computers, they're not going anywhere. So like anything attached to computers, computer sciences, like I obviously um, kind of have drifted towards computer related stuff, and I always have, and I never could never learn coding or anything like that. Like if I could go back and do it all again, I probably would try to strike a chord between like sports and coding or sports and computers in some way. It's just it's too efficient. There's too much out there that can be done better by incorporating analytics and logistical processing and things like blockchain and all that. So yeah, for sure. So as somebody that's in the adult world and has been for a long time, I know it might seem like it's uncertain now, but I think it'll all shake out for you, Al. I really do.
No, that's I mean, everyone says that.
Yeah. But like I mean it when I say it to people that picked a career path that has a lot of different possible um like places to do it. Um, if you that's kind of the problem with higher education to date is people went and got degrees for things that they legitimately cannot do. Like a ton of my friends have physical education degrees from good state schools in New York, and there's not enough physical education teaching positions. And the school did the disservice of teaching those kids that and selling that education to them because they can't use that now. They're all doing something different. So that wasn't a valuable return on their investment at all. Um, that kind of stuff, like I think you'll be able to use your career
No, definitely.
some
And
fashion
I'm
somewhere,
sure,
and then you can find what you really like about it and carve that
yeah.
out. But some people, they can't even do what they like because there is no spot for it, and that puts them in a really bad have to work to survive doing something you don't like equation, and that's awful. So
Yeah, in that sense, it's unfortunate that I chose um uh, a degree that opens up a lot of opportunities. Like you said, it's I mean, technology is the future. And I
yeah.
have a lot of different paths I can take. Like when I'm, when I this upcoming semester, when I start looking for jobs, um, I'm also going to be looking to do certain certifications that help me get
Mhm.
those more competitive positions and like in those companies and so on. But kind of the things that I'm looking at are um, something to do with cybersecurity, um, Internet of Things, cloud computing, all these things that have to do with my major and things I've learned about. I have a certification in AWS, for example. So I've learned about that, and it's things that are definitely like, applicable to, most companies nowadays. And it won't be very hard finding a job, I don't think. It's just a matter of finding that thing within, like, or that I guess branch of it
Mhm.
that I enjoy more than perhaps the other branches of it.
And I really I look at like technology. There's just so many ways to do it. Um, Everybody, one way or another, could utilize understanding how to sell a product, right? How to market a product, how to logistically look at, like we're just talking about, like how do we track how do we track responses from parents that might have had, and kids that might have had like a not great camp experience. Like, so there's just so many different ways to utilize technology that might not even be present. So I'll give you an example. I was sitting here and I'm trying to get like a family photography setup for me and my wife this weekend. And I was like, man, I'm going on referrals. Like I'm asking people and everybody's booked. I'm like, there's gotta be like an Uber service for photographers. There has to be a surplus of photographers that don't have a gig for this weekend at that time. And I have to be able to find it. And sure enough, I just typed in like photographers, like as soon as possible. And an app called Snapper showed up, and it's basically what it is. You say you need a photographer, you give them your zip code, you tell them the time, and it puts your offer in front of 5 people that said that they want to work on this weekend at that time, and bang, it books it for them. Like, so, you know, like, that's photography, for crying out loud. Like there's going to be so many different utilizations for, you know, smart computer savvy people during this part of history, because you're still getting people that are not technologically literate. And so the easier it is to like onboard them, the more employable people are. Like the example that I give is there was a period of time where the automobile existed, but the majority of people still rode horses, right? Like there had to be a moment in history where like cars were around, but like horses were still predominantly the mass mode of transportation. And like that was a really difficult time period, right? Because both were trying to exist. And we're just still working through like transitioning to a highly digital, like not so much paper, not so much written, as scary as that might be, like kind of existence. So yeah, I see there a bright computer sciences future, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely. One of the, I guess, things that I find interesting, or perhaps more interesting than other aspects of it, because at the end of the day, there's things about computers that are more interesting than others, I think. And so one of the aspects of it that I like to perhaps look into, which you have some experience in, is cryptocurrency. And I've looked a little bit into NFTs. I don't know much about NFTs. I know very
Sure.
little about them. What jobs or opportunities are there, do you think, or do you know of, in that like realm?
Yeah, so really, like from what I've seen in terms of cryptocurrency and NFTs and, you know, different types of like layer 2 solutions. So that's like cryptocurrencies that are like Polygon, that are layered over Ethereum. So they make it much less intense in terms of electricity. Their carbon footprint then is low. Their transaction speed is quicker, but it happens on a parallel platform. There's a lot of those companies that are trying to get up and running, and they are looking for smart developers and savvy people within computer sciences and computer technology to really kind of, the running joke is like win the L2 wars, because right now it's kind of like the roads are the way they were originally for cars. Like they're dirt, and if there's rain, they get super muddy, right? And they get like these ruts in them sometimes. And of course, the dirt road for the Model T works, but where things got really interesting is when the road started to get better and the cars were able to move faster, and then you made faster cars and all of that stuff. So we're still pretty early on the technology and how to make it efficient. It's effective right now, but it still needs work to really have mass adoption, be able to utilize it. And so to do that, they're going to need to have people build out that stuff, and also be able to analytically break it apart. So the best thing to do if you're looking for jobs in that sense is kind of hop on Twitter and kind of see, what projects and what companies are getting up and running. A very interesting one that's coming around is called Starkware. It's a layer 2 solution that's trying to not necessarily package individual data quicker. It's trying to package more data together and move that quicker. And that'll help with congestion and making things more efficient and all that. So that's one off the top of my head. But there's
By layer
if you go to-
two, sorry,
Sure.
quickly. By layer two, you mean layered on top of Ethereum? What you were describing about it being more efficient and utilizing less like energy and resources.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So there's a bunch of different like layer 2 cryptocurrencies that are gaining traction for varying reasons, but eventually one of them will become the front runner in all of this. The other ones will still exist, but it's like grocery stores, right? Like, Walmart, because the way that they do things is probably the most well-known grocery store, if you want to really call it that, in the world, probably. And there's other ones that are still fully viable businesses, but like if you really are thinking about something and you need it quick and you need it a certain way, like you go to Walmart, that kind of stuff. So there's other options, but the L2 wars will definitely happen over the next 2 years, and you'll probably see the next time that there's an uptick that one of those companies does astronomically well. So like right now, probably Polygon that's doing the best out of all of them, but we'll see how they do over the next 2 to 3 years in terms of getting people to onboard and adoption and making it user friendly. Because it's still right now, I am in this stuff every day, and I definitely don't like trying to bridge things from Ethereum to Polygon and then from Polygon back. It just takes a while.
So like I'm guessing from what you're saying, they're looking for people that kind of have the ability to code an ecosystem to where it makes it more accessible to everyone.
It would be, yeah, like if I could go back and learn coding, I would learn a few different types of coding to try and just understand. I understand what I'm doing and how I understand how to use it. I understand why people use it. I think I'm okay at grasping from a kind of a psychological marketing standpoint, what makes people want to buy into things. But I have if I looked at a page of code, it would be another language. Like I wouldn't be able to tell you one thing about one thing, even though I use it every day. Does the NASCAR driver have to know how to build the engine from scratch? Well, no, but man, he probably can be a much better driver if he does. And that's kind of how I feel. I'm doing a great job, like driving the unit and utilizing it, but I would have no idea how to make it truly better from the inside. And that's where I think like the best people is they're able to kind of do both. So that's kind of what I might do.
Are these layer 2 cryptocurrencies? They're still cryptocurrencies, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
basically, the definition of any cryptocurrency is there a blockchain ledger attached to it?
Okay.
So meaning that if I sent you this cryptocurrency, is there a trackable record of it that's publicly facing and accessible to anybody that wants to see it? So there are tons of different cryptocurrencies out there. Some are layer 2s because they're over Ethereum or even like Bitcoin. Some are considered layer 1s because they are their own blockchain. That would be Ethereum. That would be Bitcoin. That would be like Tezos, Solana. Like they're their own blockchain, and they run their it's called validators. So they basically are proving that things are happening on the blockchain, and they all run that proof a little differently. And some run it faster, some run it slower, some package it differently. But yeah, they all have their own little niche about it. Again, kind of like cars in the sense of there's Toyotas and there's Fords and there's, you know, Porsches, and they all technically are the same kind of idea, but they do things a little differently on each front. Um, you know, motorcycles, right? Things like that.
Yeah. Are the layer twos, is there a specific language they're coded in, or is it different?
Yeah, so it depends. I hear a lot of solidity is a word I keep hearing tossed around.
I've never
That's
heard of
one
that.
right, right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be one that I would recommend looking up. And then each one, if you looked up, like, you know, what is Ethereum coded in, they'd tell you. But every time I'm reading a book or listening to a podcast, it's talking about devs that have multiple, like, they can code in multiple different languages. So
Yeah. So what do you like? What do you do? Since like, do you invest in it, or what position do you take in this whole
yeah,
cryptocurrency?
I mean,
Or
at face value, I'm probably by definition just a collector and investor at this point. Um, yeah, but the difference I think between like the speculative collectors and investors and myself is certain people are looking at this solely as like, how much money can it make me? And I look at certain things as like, what does this NFT or what does the technology that they're trying to do, or how are they trying to revolutionarily break a archaic system? So like, I bought a couple like today even, and it's literally part ownership in a European soccer club. Like, that's what it is. And how on earth would I have ever bought a stake in a European soccer club before NFTs showed up? Like, I would have had to probably go over to Europe, like had money in there, you know, like in whatever European currency I would have needed. And I would have needed to have been present at probably some stakeholders meeting to buy that from probably somebody that wanted to sell it on the spot. Like, I have zero clue, no clue. But because of the ability to transfer and track anything, really, like, this is why you hear blockchain, you know, obviously you hear it for cryptocurrency, but it's not even really about cryptocurrency. Like, you hear it for shipping, like you hear it for shipping logistics, because where did my UPS package go? Like, where did my luggage go? Well, blockchain solves that. Like, you will literally see where it stopped, and then you know where it is. Now you just have to find it physically within that location, but there's no, like, we have no clue.
it's also like encrypted, right? So it's a lot more secure than a regular transaction.
For sure. And that's where like the finances part comes into it. But and you're just trying to encrypt it because even if it is luggage, like, you don't necessarily want people to be able to see whose luggage it is. Otherwise, every celebrity's luggage would get scoffed, you know? So like, the right people should have access to the right information, and then no one else needs it, even though everybody can see what it, like, that it moves. So what I mean by that is, so for instance, like my buddies and I, when the market started to kind of really go like kind of sideways, there's certain platforms that will let you know when an immense amount of cryptocurrency has moved from a wallet to a wallet. Now, we don't know whose money it is. I don't really need to, but all I need to know as somebody that's trying to protect my own investments is somebody is moving $1 trillion and potentially has the chance to take the market down 5% if they move it to sell. And that allows me to make a much better decision about, well, do I sell or am I holding? am I gonna like ride this out? Whereas before, like you wouldn't know that information until it hit CNN and it's too late. Like retail just gets absolutely demolished because they don't have the information quick enough. Whereas this is the speed of the internet. So you are as savvy as how much information can you collect and process. It's all there for everybody. So it's super fair in the sense that like, if you know what to look for when, you know, when certain things might happen, you have an advantage. So that's what really got me into the trading and collecting side of it, is just how fair the opportunities are. So when you look at like some of the bigger names that are in it from like an entrepreneurial standpoint, it's like your Gary V's and, you know, those guys kind of got their big kicks by investing in Twitter early and investing in Uber early and Snapchat early. And I was always said like I knew Uber was a good idea. I was driving around in my own car in Nashville and I was like, man, like I got this new car and I'm driving around the city and I see these people waiting for this bus stop. I just wish I could like pick one of them up and be like, all right, like, what do you want to pay me to drive? Like we might be going in the same direction. I thought that one year when I moved to a major city, and then the next year, Lyft and Uber show up in Nashville. And now I can do that. I'm obviously getting paid for it, but I'm paying somebody else a cut. But like, I know good ideas when I see them. I just had never had the chance. Like, how do you even get in that meeting? How do you get in an Uber fundraising round? How do you even have the chance to do that? That's the impossible part. Not knowing Uber was going to be a great idea. It's how do you get in that meeting to even give people the money that you want? Or you don't have enough money to even participate, which is this like overarching problem. Like, you have to have earlier, you needed to have enough money to even get a chance to invest in that in Uber, right? You probably needed $100,000 to just have a chance to invest in it. But NFTs make it so you can literally buy one. Like somebody can buy a single NFT for $400 and now they have one vote in this soccer club. Now somebody could buy 100 and they obviously have more of a vote, but that one person still has a vote, a seat at the table, and it never would have happened the old way.
Yeah, I kind of, when it comes to NFTs, I kind of
Sure.
stopped at the point where so at the beginning, I guess the beginning phases of NFTs, like people were buying them like merely as this like digital picture and with
Sure.
nothing, no sort of additional material value attached to it.
Sure.
And when I looked at this, I was like, well, this is just completely stupid, because at some point, like someone's going to realize this is a picture and it's worth nothing and it has no sort of value attached to it. Why is it worth $1 million? It's just not, But now that you're saying that, and I learned that sometimes I think, there can be value attached to it, like this vote in the soccer club. Like when did that like change take place, and what kind of material, like things can you get from it?
The word that you're like kind of framing this around is called utility. Like what, and that's always been the thing. Like, what does your NFT do? Right? Like that was always my question. Like, what is it a part of? What is, like, how does it participate in a video game or in a sports club or in like a super exclusive access pass? So sure, like people see monkey pictures for $1 million. And first thing I'll say about like that is art is funny because it is what it's worth what people will buy it for. Any picture by anybody ever. It's just a picture. So why is a Van Gogh worth millions of dollars? Just old paint. But people perceive. Go for it.
I was gonna say, like, I think it's different when it comes to a physical, um, like something you can feel and touch when it comes to art. At least when you have a painting, an original painting that's, Van Gogh or um
Uh,
Da Vinci or whatever, right?
So
It's this
I'm
physical
with you.
thing. Yeah.
But the funny thing about it is, if you actually looked it up, most of those super exclusive pieces of artwork, do you know where they're stored? Like, not maybe most, but like there's a certain segment that are stored at a specific, like a couple specific locations because of a couple different reasons. Do you know where they're stored?
And I mean, in museums, I'm sure a lot of them are.
Sure, sure. So those ones, but I'm talking about like the personal ones that are looked at as an investment.
Oh, I do not know.
So they're stored. Did you ever see, gosh, is it? It's like a Tenet. Did you ever see the movie Tenet?
I didn't.
Okay. Well, one of the big scenes in that movie is at one of these locations. They basically park these pieces of fine art at airports in hangars, private hangars at airports, because it doesn't go through customs. It stays in basically a tax-free purgatory. And they do that because this is an asset to them. This is not a, I'm going to enjoy it, see it on the wall thing. This is a store of value. And in that case, NFTs are a completely more transferable and seamless version of that. Now, do I think those monkey pictures are worth $1 million? No, I don't. I would never buy one at this point, right? But I definitely bought buy NFTs. It's called minting them when you actually create them, because you are basically stamping on the blockchain that it exists. So that's where like the term minting comes from, right? Like minting a coin. That if you can buy it cheap and there's value in that, like if you like what you're getting because it's at that point. So like this one, like I just minted 2 of those, and I'm probably in 90 minutes going to try to mint 5 more. And I'll have 7, right? If everything goes the way that I want it to, I'll have 7. And then if the price of these goes up, because people are like, that's super cool, I get to like own a part of a soccer club, I get a jersey because of it, I get free tickets because of it. Like my thought is, if I get free tickets to this game, that I'm obviously not going to Europe all the time, but I'm going to have 7 tickets that I can then resell and hopefully recoup some of that. And then, yeah, like I now have a reason to go over to Europe to watch my soccer team play. And who knows, like if their play is, this is a level 2 team and they want to get to level 1 and then they want to get to the Premier League, and like, holy smokes, like if this team is actually able to, by crowdfunding money and publicly facing like the decisions to the group, if they're able to collectively get to a competitive spot in the Premier League, like that is unheard of. Like the elite and the rich don't want company. Like all of the NFL owners do not want company. They don't want anybody to take any of their power at all. That's why it's like this stuffy, exclusive white man's club, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that's right. I just don't think that's right. So the fact that a sport's trying to tip that entire thing upside down and say, everybody's got to say, we're going to roll with it this way and we're going to see what we get. If this way works, every franchise should really be worried, because a group of people will raise enough money to buy them out and do it better. And shouldn't that be the way it's done?
So the team is in the EFL, I think it's called, right? Or that's
So
at least that's the second division, I think, for.
I believe I'll get you the information for sure. But it's I want to say it's the Crowleytown Football Club.
Okay.
Is the actual team that's been purchased.
Well, I was curious, but
Yeah.
Going back to it, I was gonna say, when it comes to something, I think you said it was called utility.
Yeah,
You know, when there's something attached to it. In this case, your vote in the club, the tickets, the
sure.
jersey, all these things. Um, those things have some sort of material value to them. But
Mhm.
if an NFT doesn't have any sort of material values to it,
Sure.
something that you can physically touch and see and feel, I'm not sure how, for example, because and it's different, I think, to physical art, because when it comes to physical art, you can maybe make a replica, but it's never going to exactly be the same. I feel
Sure.
like, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like with NFTs, you can replicate it in a way where it is going to be exactly the same, and you didn't have to pay for the NFT itself.
So you can also buy knockoff Nikes, right? You can buy a knockoff Rolex, and like, sure, you can walk around and it looks like you have a Rolex and it looks like you got dunks on, but people that know what they know the difference, right?
Can you tell the difference between a replicated NFT and the real one?
So, and that's where the blockchain comes in. Because if somebody was like, oh, I have a Bored Ape, they're like, okay, show me your wallet. Like, show me that it's in your private wallet, because it's all trackable.
Right. No, but aside from
So,
any like ledger, or aside from any like actual receipt transaction,
mhm,
you can't tell from the physical picture itself, but you can tell if you know what to look for in some knockoff Nikes from some real ones.
for sure. But what's happening? So, like on my, I think you should be able to see it too. On my Twitter account, it's in an octagon. It's not in a circle,
Okay.
because Twitter made it so that you can verify that you own that profile picture, that picture in your profile picture is yours. So you can't fake that because it's tied to the blockchain, right? It's tied to them verifying that it's yours. So yeah, like you could, it's called, the joke's right click save, right? You could right click save any NFT ever, but there hopefully as a utility at a certain point where you have to, through using just they're like, it's called a smart contract, because it's verifying that that's real and that's owned by you. So a couple of weeks ago I was in New York and I got to go to a concert. I got to see the Roots open for Future in New York City. I got food paid for, drinks paid for, access to limited edition merchandise that I still had to buy, but you couldn't buy unless you were there. And you had to, through a certain, and I could explain if you want, but like through certain verification protocols, prove that you owned one of those. So it's only people that were allowed in had to own one of the NFTs. So that's like real world utility. It's like if Soho Club made you have to have an NFT. It's like a membership card that's immutable, that you just can't fake it. People forever have been making fake IDs and fake passports. Like, you can't fake this stuff. So I think there's a lot of use cases for membership rights and perks of being a recurring fan. So I'll give you an example. We had, when I worked for the Chiefs in customer relations, they'd give footballs away, like very customized footballs with your name and how many years that you've been a fan and like a season ticket member holder and all that. And there were people that had been season ticket member holders for like 50 plus years because they would have been around since the merger. And there were people that would call in and be like, my family's been a fan for this long because my dad had the tickets before us and now it's in my name. And we basically had to tell them we can't do that. We can't give you this perk because that's a story. That's not truth. There's no way for us to fact check that. Well, this stuff makes it so you don't need mortgage paper anymore. You don't need a title on a car. You don't need licenses anymore. It's literally an immutable ability to verify information that also, of course, in some dumb way is attached to $1 million monkey pictures. But again, people buy cars that are terrible on gas mileage, that should be on a racetrack to drive around cities, stoplight to stoplight, because why?
Well,
Why?
yeah, like why do they buy these cars, you mean?
Yeah,
To have status.
right. To have status. And
Yeah.
if you buy one of those super rich cars and you live in Miami, you know what I'm talking about. How many people get to interact with a driver of that car? Like really interact with them about the car?
I mean, not many.
No, like you drive it down the street and people see it like, damn, that's a sweet car, but no
Take
one,
pictures and that's about it.
and you're not even in the picture, right? Like you have no it's all your clout and you have no interaction with people enjoying it. You have no, there's no benefit really to like owning that car other than people are like, damn, that's $250,000 car. And then you hand the keys to the valet and go into your restaurant. Like
Yeah.
this stuff, at least, and I know it sounds silly, but at least if somebody knows I have a verified Mutant Ape Yacht Club picture, that they can communicate with me, they know it's mine, and talk about it and talk about this stuff with me, because it's a much more communal, community-based system of collecting and status and all of that. Like it sounds weird, but NFTs and blockchain to me create a much more tangible community feeling than any other high value asset. Like there's not a group chat for Rolex owners about how much they love their Rolex. Like I can hop into any kind of Twitter conversation or any kind of Discord group, and they're token verified. So there's only certain access to people that have those NFTs. And I can jump into a conversation with people that collected this soccer club NFT. And we can just talk about how excited we are to be a part of like the first wave of brand new sports stuff.
Yeah. No, in that sense, like in that soccer,
Sure,
NFT,
that is one of the better use cases.
Yeah, and I 100% think that in those types of scenarios, I understand why people would want to get one, and it totally makes sense to me. Do they still sell? Can you still find NFTs that have no sort of perks attached to them? I mean, I'm sure you can, right?
Yep.
Okay. And see, again, with those types of situations, I would much rather try to find one like the one you're taking part in right now and
Yeah.
looked into. I would like it just makes more sense to me.
Yeah. And that's what it takes. Like, don't get caught up, because the $1 million monkey pictures are just a headline. They're supposed to be salacious and people are just supposed to look at me like that's stupid. But it's a lot of this stuff is, I mean, like, bro, like when the internet first came to schools, right? When I had access to internet in 8th grade, pretty sure, in my middle school, like one of the #1 sites was the hamster dance site. It was just a stupid website with like hamsters dancing on it and a terrible song in the background. And like that was the beginning of the internet, right? Like, so every beginning has absolute anarchy, but then it kind of gets shaken out and there's so much better purpose for the internet now. So
What future do you see with, I'm sure it's gonna have, I'm sure you think it's gonna have a lot of uses for, NFTs are gonna have a lot of uses, but what type of how can it, like, where is it going, do you think?
So
Is it going to be something that, for example, companies are now going to use as if you have this sort of NFT, you then have, like you said, limited access to these things, and it serves sort of as maybe as a membership kind of, a lot of times we
Yeah,
pay
I can't.
memberships for whatever, but is that the
So
new going for?
I I think that anything that has a long-term membership plan. So like I know there's certain ski resorts that have lifetime passes that have been handed down like generationally, that are just like a physical pass. So like you lose it, like tough shit, like it's gone. And I think that you're going to get certain types of, um, you know, certain types of high end um, brands and corporations that will definitely adopt this kind of thing, and even all the way down to super super niche stuff. So that's the part of this that's kind of full circle to me, is to make a good living doing something super obscure. You don't need a lot of support. So what I mean by that is, say you are, gosh, say you're really good at, I don't know, like speed crochet, like something super niche, right? If you can get 1,000 people, right, to give you $100 a year for whatever, like to watch you speed crochet, to get a like your one day out of the year, like the speed crochet lesson that you do is your speed crochet like request, right? Whatever. Right? How much do you make?
You said $100 a year for 1,000 people.
Right.
That's 100,000.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy. And like to date, to right now, that is up currently with inflation rates. That's about where you need to live to not have to worry about anything. Like that, it used to be like 75, and you really never had to worry about paycheck to paycheck. Like you were going to live comfortably with your mortgages and your car payments. And now it's probably about 100. But like that's bananas. That if you can get, and there's probably 1,000 people in the world that would do that.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
like we spend more on Starbucks coffee in a month. And so like the creator economy, the way that people like participate is and should be completely changed. You know, why is it that a record label, so a performing artist, right? I'm at my local, I'm at my local country bar. Somebody gets up there for karaoke night and they crush it. Like they are just amazing. And I know it. And like I go to this karaoke bar, right? And I go up and I'm not like, hey, can I buy your CD? And they're like, hey, like here's one of my Genesis NFTs. I'm just really trying to put together enough money so that I can go record my first record. And you're like, yeah, I'll take 10 of those. And you buy them for whatever, say $100 a pop. So it's $1,000. And then that person goes on to fund their record, do their studio time and their producer and, their tour bus rental, right? And they crush it. They just explode. You now have a percentage of that revenue based off of however they want to build that rev share. Where before you still saw that person, you went up, you're like, hey, I want to support you. Like, what can I do? And they're like, you can buy a t-shirt, you can buy a CD, and we can just, tell people about my music. And then they have to go shill themselves to some record label who then makes them sign a contract where the artist doesn't own the masters anymore. And the artist crushes it. they just explode. And the artist makes a good amount of money, but who makes the most money? The record label, the person that funded everything.
Right.
And now owns the masters. It's the reason that Taylor Swift re-recorded all of her stuff, is because the masters are owned by somebody that's not her. And she's like, this is BS. Like, I should make money off of my talent forever. And so she re-recorded her stuff and has actually asked her fans to listen to her version of it because she now owns the masters to those. That should never happen. And you, as the person that discovered her sooner and wanted to support her earlier, should get a cut of the funding in perpetuity, not Scooter Braun and Big Machine. Like, they want to keep all of the stuff for themselves. They don't want to dole it out. Like I said, like, the rich super elite don't want company. They don't. So it's those kind of things. They can completely change the way that things are done. And I'm here for it. I'm here for the real estate market to get absolutely wrecked, the music industry to get absolutely wrecked, sports and how they're run to get obliterated. Yeah, like, I bought a house going on like 18 months ago now. I was like, why am I paying these people? I had one email with this person and they get $1,000 for what? Like, I could have done that.
With the realtors, you mean?
Yeah, like, nothing against realtors, but like, there's just built banks too, right? There's just built-in systemic processes that really don't need to exist anymore. And because they do exist, we need to pay for them because it's just the way it's always been done. Like, I did not need to have certain things done to sell that house. Just didn't, but I had to pay somebody to do it because that's how it works. It's not a good enough answer. You know, like, if I want to move $10,000 in from my bank, I shouldn't need somebody else to sign off on that. Because what that basically means is, like, my money's not my money. Right.
Wait, who do you need? Like someone you give authorization to be like second person to your account, or?
No, like, so this is a fun trick. How much money do you think you can get out of your bank account right now without anybody helping you?
If I went to the bank, right? Not an ATM.
Yep.
They probably start asking for some additional stuff, probably like around, I want to say $800, $900. If I try to ask for like 1,000, maybe they need some other form of like verification or something.
Right. Like, I have a pretty decent bank and my limit, a cash limit for the day is $1,000.
Yeah. That's
kind of like, what if you needed to do something in a hurry? Like,
yeah.
Like, really important, right? Like, I have to wait. I thought it was my money, right?
Yeah. But it's weird with cash and banks because a lot of times banks don't carry that much cash.
But isn't that kind of weird too?
Yeah,
where is it?
Definitely.
So, like, where is it? And this is a much bigger question, much bigger conversation. But banks are kind of a sham too, because what they've told you is, hey, we'll keep your money safe, but then your money's not there, and somebody else within the bank system is using your money to make them more money that they're not sharing with you. Yeah. That's kind of bull, right?
Yeah, they give you some sort of interest, like
dividend.
Dividend, yeah, sorry.
But like, they're making,
and it's like what, 1%, 2%?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. If they're making 10%, how come I'm getting 1%?
Yeah.
That seems like a scam.
Yeah, you might as well just invest it yourself.
Which is what we did. And we're doing great.
Yeah. Now, I think you have to go here soon.
Yeah, but I want to make sure you got what you needed or enough to at least chop it up and maybe make it sound like we're not tin hat truthers here, you know?
Yeah. No, but I guess one thing that I was curious about, and you can talk about this before you head out if you have to go, is that with this thing that you've been getting into when it comes to NFTs and
Mhm.
cryptocurrency, it's very
Yeah.
different. It's very different to what you do at IMG with
Yeah.
the um when it comes to psychology and
Sure.
sports psychology. So how do you ever um intermingle the two and apply it perhaps to your
Man, I'm
stuff
trying
you coach
so
right now?
hard.
Okay.
I'm trying so hard to combine the two, because the number one thing that if there's one thing that just makes the most sense for blockchain, NFT, digital collectible like technology, it's sports memorabilia and trading cards. And even all the way down to like yearbooks and booster club stuff for fundraising. There's just so many, people buy a yearly calendar to support their local high school basketball team, right? Why not make that a digital collectible that does the same thing, but if the next LeBron James happens to be on that calendar, now becomes an asset that might actually make you money down the line. So you supported somebody and did the right thing in the moment. And then later on, because that person became an NBA all-star, now the vintage high school calendar actually carries some interesting value, right? It's endless to me. And so I'm trying very hard with among the people at this place to get it to work. Yeah. So that one for sure. And then in terms of my actual job, in terms of the mental conditioning stuff, part of the reason I think I've been decent at this at all is because there's a lot of mental skills in trading. So if you've ever watched the show, and I don't necessarily like using this reference, but people get it. If you've ever watched the show Billions on Showtime,
No.
don't worry about it. It's a stock trading equities market show, and it's pretty good. I enjoy watching it. But there's one character in it, and her name is Wendy Rhodes. And when you're moving like fat stacks of money, like big time money, your brain starts to do weird stuff, right? You like it's kind of like taking that game-winning shot. Like you just start to get really kind of squirrely, and so you have to kind of gut check yourself and have you done the research to validate the decision that you're about to make?
Yeah.
Have you run through the plan B and plan C if it doesn't go well? Those kind of things. And so to have the performance psychology background that I have, I think has kept me, people burn out real quick in this stuff, good or bad. If they do well, they burn out. If they do bad, they burn out. And I think I'm able to keep coming back every day and keep trying, because I have a better mental model and mental framework set up of like, what am I trying to do? Why am I trying to do it? How I want to execute it. And like, I've missed out truly. Like, obviously I don't know exactly how it would have gone had I done things, but I was in this space before those $1 million monkey pictures were around. Like I remember people minting them for $250 a piece. Like I remember almost buying one for $500. And I did, and bought two more of something else. And that's gone well, not that well, but well enough. And so, yeah, like I could lose my mind over that decision all alone.
Yeah, it's very, I'm
So,
sure it's very similar to the psychology
yeah,
of gambling, for example.
for sure, for sure. But the trading part's also an interesting one. But yeah, there's you gotta know that there's a randomness to this that isn't fair, that does not care like who you are or how much thought you gave into it, or is it your last dollar? It doesn't care. Like, so you just gotta kind of rely on all of the things that we talked about as a football player and mental conditioning coach, and just kind of plug it in and roll with it, because it's coming back, and your consistency and your routines and sticking to parameters that you've set. That's how you stay in the game.
Yeah,
That's just what we're trying to do.
I forgot the exact term for it, but if I remember, a lot of times in gambling, I'm sure in stock trading too, it's this sense that when you lose some money, you have to stay in there to regain it, and it just keeps going down, down, down,
Yeah.
and then you end up losing that much money. And so that thing you said about having parameters to the point where you're
Yeah.
like, okay, if it crosses this line,
Yeah.
I'm done, I'm out.
Right. Right.
And having the mental strength to do that, and being okay with that decision, and not
Sure.
let it hang over your head, because then if it did go back up, you can't let that bother
Right.
you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
is there specific like guidelines you follow, or what?
Yeah.
I guess what tips do you have in that sense?
So I try very hard to stick to math. Like, math doesn't lie. So like, if I've bought something for, so like today I sold something. It's actually a perfect scenario. So like, I bought it at I want to say 0.1 like 3 months ago. And now granted, this is where this stuff can get super wonky, is because I bought it for 0.1 Ethereum. Today I sold it for 1 Ethereum to try to buy this other stuff. So that's a 10x on the Ethereum value. But if I was looking at the price of Ethereum, it's probably not a very good sale, because Ethereum was 5 times what it was 3 months ago.
Right.
So 3 months ago, the 0.1 that I just bought was like $1,500. And today I sold it for 2,500 or 1,200. So like, I technically took a USD loss.
Yeah.
If you really wanted to get down to it, but I don't trade that way. Like, that's another kind of line that I've drawn in the sand, is like, I'm trading in Ethereum prices. And so that's one. Another is like, if something is a 10x, you really do need to think about selling, like, regardless of how you feel about it. Right. Like, so I don't know if I would have minted those monkey pictures as soon as they crossed 10x, I might have sold them all. Well, that's not true. In terms of trading, I always buy in threes. So the hope is that if you buy in threes, that the whole thing kicks off so much that you can sell one of them to cover the other two. And then you can sell the second one whenever you feel like it or / need it. And then you have one, so you're never technically out of the project. Because the worst thing in the world is like selling your last of something and then having it go parabolic. That's a terrible scenario. And I've never been in that scenario, because I always at least buy 2. I'm going to buy 1. I find a way to buy 2, and I try to buy as early as I can. So math, so your multiplication. So if it goes up 7x, I'm really thinking about, do we sell this, and why wouldn't we? If it's at 10 to 15, it's almost like, do we have to? And if it crosses the 20 mark, it's almost a guaranteed sell it no matter what, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that doesn't matter whether I bought it for 1 Ethereum and it's at 20 now, or I bought it for 0.1 and it's at 2 Ethereum. Like, it doesn't.
And are these NFTs you're talking about, or like layer 2
Yeah.
cryptocurrencies?
Or
both?
Generally, this has been this is NFTs.
Okay.
Now, cryptocurrency, it's more percentage points. So if I have and this goes down. So the problem with NFTs right now is there's not a real good way to track the lows. So I know when stuff's going up quickly and I should sell it, but I'm not very good at, like, things are going down rather quickly and I'm like up quickly and I should sell it, but down rather quickly and I should buy it. That's a tough part of NFTs that I'm not really good at yet. But in terms of cryptocurrency, if things go up on a 10% tear, they tend to have to come back down, in my opinion. So if I'm looking at cryptocurrency and it's up 10%, it might just be time to sell, because the chances of it ripping another 15% and going 25% in a day are so minimal. But I try not to day trade cryptocurrency. Try not to day trade anything really. But if I'm going to buy cryptocurrency, I'm going to try to find an entry point that I think is a good price and just hold it. I just try to invest in cryptocurrencies that I believe in, ones that I utilize. And then right now, if I'm selling anything, it's basically kind of like this. Like I sold the one today just to get a couple more NFTs. Because we sold enough to like put us in a good spot to have some savings aside. And so now it's just like trying to see what sells to stay in the game and just broaden the portfolio, if you will.
It's interesting. So you go from, teaching these or like having these meetings and these coaching sessions and to then coming back to your office and doing your thing with NFTs and
Dude,
cryptocurrency.
like the craziest stuff is like, it's not even the office, man. Like I've done stuff from here I've made it's so fun because it's the other thing is, and this is again, you got to kind of know yourself. It's 24/7, 365. The crypto market never stops ever. Yeah. So there's no off button. And I mean this, like when crypto was rocketing, there would be nights where I was like, oh, Ethereum's at a pretty good price. Like I'm gonna buy some. And so like I'd buy some Ethereum and then I'd go to sleep and I'd wake up at like 5 a.m. to let the dogs out. And I'd look at it and the Asian markets had taken it up, like I said, 15 to 25%. And I know I'm looking at this before the East Coast has seen it. And I know when New York wakes up, they're probably going to sell.
Yeah.
And so I would sell it, go back to sleep for a few hours,
wake
up, have made, we'll say like $2,000, and then go about my day and then do it all over again. So like just waking up and seeing the discrepancy in the markets is even an advantage if you can do it. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you could do it the other way around to where when the Asian market, people there are sleeping and the New York people are up.
Right.
You do it the other way around. That's interesting. That's smart.
Yeah. So, hey, it's not all gravy though, man. Like this is the last 18 months have been the worst amount of sleep I've ever got in my life.
That's another part about, psychology that you gotta make, limits, put your limits so you can go to sleep, do your thing.
And for sure. And that's a lot easier to do now. I honestly was telling her, she was still my girlfriend at the time, but I was like, I can't explain this to you, but you need to understand it's the truth. I know if I go to sleep, I'm losing money. I just know it. Like it was the truth for a few months there. My buddies and I were talking and we were like, I'm just too tired to make money today. I'm too burnt to like put in the effort to figure out what's the thing that's going to make me $2,000 today. And that is a bananas thing to say. But there were certain days where we just were like, we're just going to shut it down. Like it'll be here tomorrow. And yeah, it sucks that we didn't make money today, but like, it's okay. Like step away from the computer. Like everybody, the stupid saying is like, go touch grass. Like,
yeah. You seem to be in that sense similar to me, as where if I'm really focused on something specific. So I thought I was going to go to law school after when I was done in December. I thought about it more and more, and I was like, no, I don't want to do this. But I was preparing to take the LSAT, which is like the admission test, and I was getting, I don't enjoy it. Kind of wasn't enjoying studying, but it was something I was like, I want to go to a really good school. I'm gonna just put my head down, and I'd be studying for hours, and I wouldn't even see that much progress, but I would get frustrated. But I'm very obsessive in that sense, to where if I'm really into something, like if I'm not doing that, then I start thinking about it and I get frustrated and I'm like, I have to go do this. And in that sense, you seem to be similar in that way. And it can be hard to put those limits and kind of make time to not do that thing that you're obsessing over.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, yeah, you just can't overthink it. And like, yeah, there's so much to it. And a lot of it is mental models and like, what do you do? And like, how do you take the, yeah, I've definitely had some big time L's, but I've also had some big time wins. So you got to just keep it in perspective. Have to.
Yeah. As long as you have more wins than losses, that's what at the end of the day
right?
matters.
Right. And like, that's the craziest part is if I would have had the year that I had and just broken even, I'm like, that was fucking blast. But we definitely did better than breaking even. And it's been a blast.
Yeah. Yeah. The very highs are very highs and the very lows, I'm sure, are very lows.
For sure. For sure.
But yeah, I mean, as long as you like it and you're doing good in it, I mean,
Yeah.
and you're careful, just I guess keep doing what you're doing. You seem to be happy with it.
So far, so good. Yep. But it's good when I got past players calling to ask me about it and other stuff too. So I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, no, I mean, thank you. I'm sure you have a busy schedule, so thank you for making time.
Of course. It's all good.